Okay, so what we're going to do now, most of you think it's going to be fun. I have just like 2 slides to introduce it, and then we'll talk about it in a slide or 2. I'm not going to teach you all to be wizards. The point of this isn't that you're going to be out, to leave here, without your body, but you'll have to take that with you. But I am going to give you some ideas of how to operate in the non-physical, and I'm going to give you some things that will probably, again, fly in the face of your beliefs and of your experience, and sometimes of your experience in the way you're doing things. But hopefully you'll learn some what you can do and ways that you can do it, a little bit of technique, and have some fun with it. In any case, go to the next page there. Okay, let's talk about what we might learn. What is it we're gonna do here? I'm gonna show you that you can focus your intent effectively without all the usual process. Most of us have this process, and first we have to sit down, and then we relax, our feet and this and that, and then we relax this part, and then we get into this state, and we hold that for a while, and the whole thing takes time. It takes 10, 15 minutes, and we go through these relaxation processes before we can put the body to sleep and keep the mind awake, and et cetera, et cetera. You're going to find out all that is ritual and unnecessary. Okay? You don't really have to do all that. And that's one thing that we're gonna learn. But now, if you have a belief that that's necessary and that you have to do that, then you're going to have a problem with this. So you need to let all the beliefs go. Next thing, we're going to do a little bit of parallel processing, which is a little bit of an advanced thing, but you're going to find that it's a lot easier than it sounds. We're going to parallel process, and I'm going to have you in 2 realities at once. We'll be in this reality, and we'll still be in a different reality, and you're going to shuffle back and forth between them as we do these healing. Now, so that may be a little different. You're going to learn to be able to switch back and forth between realities, which is really what parallel processing is. You're going to switch back and forth. You're going to multiplex in your realities pretty effortlessly and quickly. Okay, you're going to learn to address these databases and present queries to the database. I'm going to give you names of people, and we're going to diagnose them, and we're going to heal them, or we're going to attempt to diagnose them and heal them. Okay, and these papers you have, you won't need these just yet, but you'll need them in just a few minutes. It may be a little hard to find a place to write, but you have to do the best you can. So if you're going to go heal somebody, or if you're going to communicate with somebody, you're going to go talk, a lot of times you have beliefs that you have to identify that person. You need a lock of their hair, you need a photograph, you need some article of their clothing, you're not a bloodhound. You don't need that, You're a consciousness. All you need is your consciousness, and that consciousness just has to define that individual uniquely. You need a unique address. Same thing you need to send a letter to somebody. You need a unique address. But that unique address doesn't have to be unique physically. It just has to be unique to the larger system, because you're interacting with the larger consciousness system. So if I say you need to go heal, John Smith, well, there are 100,000 John Smiths on this planet. And you're saying, gee, which one? It's the one that I asked you to go heal. It's the one whose data we have collected and asked you to go heal. That's the one. Well, there's only one John Smith whose data we have collected and asked you to heal. And that's the one we want you to go to. So in your mind, the way you do that address is I intend to interact with the John Smith that he's talking about. There's only one John Smith I'm talking about, somebody that I know, who has this problem or that, and I'm going to ask you to heal him. So that's the thing. So don't just intend John Smith. You have to intend the John Smith that I'm talking about. So there's a few things like that you have to realize. But you don't need, I wouldn't even have to give you the name John Smith. I just do that because that makes people more comfortable. If you get too far out of people's comfort zones, they can't function. So we're going to use a name, but I could just say John, or I could just say JS, or I could just say that guy I'm thinking about now, But if I said that, everybody would go, oh, I can't deal with that. What do you mean that guy he's thinking about now? This is starting to get strange. But if I tell you John Smith, then it makes you feel a little better. And if I gave you a chunk of his hair and a picture, maybe you'd feel even better yet, but none of that's necessary. So it's the conscious intent has to have a unique address. That's all. The larger conscious system will know which John Smith you're talking about because it's the one that we've collected data on his health and we're asking you to go heal him. There's only one like that. All right, now we're going to use tools. I'm going to help you dream up tools. I have to say maybe a little bit about tools. There's all sorts of tools in this arena that people use. Okay, and there's some things that are going to surprise you. Maybe some will even upset you. But these tools, like everything else, is just metaphors and symbols. Okay. Often the tools become sacred themselves. And we make the tools necessary. The tools are not necessary. All they do is help us focus our intent. Your conscious intent is what the active ingredient is. The tool helps you focus it. So now, things like light is a tool. Light is just a metaphor. Energy is a metaphor. Okay, and you're thinking, well, what does that mean? Well, they're just metaphors. Let me break couple other sacred cows. Things like, the Reiki symbols, they're metaphors. Chakras are metaphors. They're all metaphors. What happens is you get data out of these databases that I told you about, 3 databases. And when you get that data, you have to interpret it. You have to interpret it based on your own experience. That interpretation comes out as visuals, sometimes as audio, sometimes as both, but that's your interpretation. And what you interpret, what you see is a metaphor for the data you've got. So we all have different databases that we're working from, our own personal experience. So we all get different metaphors and different symbols, and it depends on your background, depends on your culture, depends on your experience, the kind of metaphors that you use. And we also read books, and the books talk about they saw this and they saw that, and that then becomes a handy metaphor for us to use too. So we spread the metaphors around among ourselves, and that's kind of what culture is, where we take these symbols and metaphors and we spread them around. But it's just metaphor now. For 35 years or so, I've been seeing auras, but an aura is just a metaphor. Okay? It's data. You get data about a person's health, and you see their health aura, and you put that data that you get about their health from the past actualized database, and you put it into an output form that you can understand. Okay? Now that's the way the system works at root. Now you don't necessarily know that if you don't understand about databases and the probable reality and all that kind of stuff. So these metaphors, these symbols become real, and they become, I guess if they're religious symbols, they become worth fighting for and dying over. The symbols become so important. But they're just ways to focus your mind. And I'm going to turn some of these symbols around so that you get to experience them from different angles, and you'll see that they're just metaphors. So we use tools. We're going to use light. We're going to use some other kind of tools for cleaning, out health auras. But all of this, what we're doing actually is getting data, interpreting the data, and I'm going to lead the interpretation because I'm going to be telling you what to see, the format to put it in, and you're going to be putting it in that format, and then I'll tell you to put it in an opposite format, and you'll put it in that format, and it'll work just as well. So you'll realize that the format's is not really important. And then we'll use these tools to heal, and when you use a tool to heal, that's just a focusing mechanism. Okay, you take your fairy wand and you touch the bad spot and it turns bright white. Well, that fairy wand's just a tool to focus your information on healing and changing the probable reality of that poor health. That's what you're doing at that level. Okay, so this is a different way of looking at it. I know nobody's kind of looked at it from this vantage point, but you'll see that this isn't freeing. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to be effective in dealing with the non-food. It's going to get rid of a lot of ritual. It's going to get rid of a lot of things that you ordinarily feel like you have to go through to get there, and you'll see it's even more effective. Okay, we're going to manipulate time. we're going to do some remote viewing as well. And it's all going to move pretty quickly. I'm not going to give you much time. First, just to get a little warm up. Okay, I want everybody to do a little warm up here. I'm going to give you some little mental exercises. You can close your eyes, you can leave your eyes open, doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. So these are our warm ups. Imagine that you are riding a bicycle. Okay, just see yourself riding a bicycle. Now, I want you to see yourself in two perspectives. One, that you are actually on the bicycle, riding it, and another where you're standing back from the bicycle, watching yourself ride it. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, that should be enough time. Now, we'll think, well, that's easy because we all have experience. We're just remembering that experience, and that's true. So now I want you to imagine that you are riding an elephant, probably something you haven't done. Okay, you're up on the back of this big elephant. You have your legs spread out wide across that back of that huge neck. You can feel it bounce. You can smell the smell. It's walking, you're riding. Now, see yourself riding from a perspective of being down on the ground, looking up at yourself, riding that elephant. Again, hear it, feel it, smell it. Okay, now, you're riding in a race car as a passenger. You're going to take a high-speed lap around the track. Hear that engine roar. See that wall go zipping by. The sounds, the odors, the gasoline, the rubber. Okay, now I want you to look at a sunflower. It's a sunflower growing in the field, just one lone, big, giant sunflower. Well, look at it. See the petals, see the green, see the flowers, the orange, the little black spots. Okay, now zoom in on it. Zoom in on that sunflower until you can see the individual seeds at the center. Zoom right in very close. You can see the texture. Okay, now imagine that you are at a young child's birthday party and you're serving birthday cake to a bunch of young children. They're all around the table, they're all noisy, and you bring out the cake. Lay the cake down and cut the first piece. Okay, now imagine that you're doing laundry. You're at home or wherever you do laundry. Here's your basket, you've got all the laundry. Smell that laundry. You have the washer, it's filling up full of water, you're sorting the clothes, you're dumping them in. Just the process you go through at doing laundry. Just imagine that. Be in that process. Experience it. Feel it. Feel the clothes, the colors, the water. Okay, we don't want to stay too long with the laundry. Let's go to the beach. So go to the beach. You're out on the sand. It's sunny, the middle of the day. It's warm. The sounds. Children playing, waves pounding, surf, smell. Lie down in the sand. Feel the grit against your skin. Feel the warmth of the sun. Smell that ocean smell. Feel the sand. Feel the sun. All right, now I want you to take a look at a gingerbread cookie. Okay, you're going to look at a gingerbread cookie. This is just a simple gingerbread cookie, just a head and body and arms and legs and feet. It's got a little happy face on it and some buttons. Now I want you to make this a brown cookie with black buttons. Now I want you to make it a vanilla, a white cookie with brown buttons. Now zoom right up close to the surface of that cookie and notice the texture and the detail in the surface. Okay? Anybody have trouble doing that? Could everybody get into at least some of those? Do those with their mind? It was easy, wasn't it? It really wasn't very hard. You could see those things and smell them and feel them and like you were doing it. Okay? Well, that's about 80% of what it is you have to do. You say, well, that's just me and my imagination. I've got a good imagination. You know, that was easy. Hey, we're going to pull all this together in a little bit. Okay, now, if I were to ask you to, one more I'm going to ask you to do, and that is imagine Santa Claus. Okay, take a look at Santa Claus. So there he is, old St. Nick. You see him? You hear him? Now I'm going to ask you, I don't want you to look at the metaphor or the symbol of Santa Claus. I want you to look at the real Santa Claus. Now what does that do? Does that throw you a curveball? You know, what is the real Santa Claus, right? Can you find a real Santa Claus? You can only find the metaphor. Okay. Well, that's enough of those. Now, the reason I asked you about that is because we're going to do the same thing with an energy body. And an energy body, a health body, is going to be just like that gingerbread man. No different. It's going to be a humanoid shape, head, trunk, body, arms, feet, legs, but just no more detail than that. And I'm going to ask you to let that, with your intent, be a metaphor or to symbolize a health body of an individual. Okay? And when I do that, you're going to have this, a lot of you are going to have this problem. Well, you know, imagination was one thing, right? I could imagine Santa Claus, but now you're asking me to see somebody's health aura, their health energy. Now it's not my imagination. I have to see their health energy, and that's different. That's kind of a real thing, not my imagination. That's not the case. What moves energy is your intent. The symbols are not that important. You bring up the metaphors, like the gingerbread cookie image, and you say, I intend for that cookie image to represent John Smith's health aura. And I want to see, you know, these sorts of things, and I'll guide you through that. And that will work. That will be that way. In other words, you're going to interface with the database. And I'm going to have you interface with the past database and the future probable database. And your intent will gather data, and you have to tell that data how you want it to be displayed. If you want it to be displayed in a humanoid shape, you tell it. If you want that to be concerning health, you have to tell it. If you would like that data in a graph so that you can look at it and see the graph, you can tell it. You'll get it in a graph. If you'd like it in a movie, you can get a movie. In other words, your intent is the query device for the database. You have to explain to it exactly what the data is you want, clearly, specifically. If you go up to Google and put in the word love, you'll get 3 billion replies back. It's not specific. You have to be very specific in a large database or you'll get garbage back. So that's the process. It's not a matter of you having to do something real mystical about seeing a health aura, and that's really hard to do. What you do is you make an image of a humanoid outline. You use your intent to say that that's the output device, and then you query the database with what you want to know, and you'll get your answer. It's just that simple, and we make it so hard. You're just extracting data from a database. And if you do it other ways, if you've done healing and you have other rituals and things that you go through, then you may feel that there is no other way to do it other than the way you're used to doing it. But just humor me and go along with it and try it and see what happens. So this is just an experiment, just to see what happens. Yes, I used to do everything the hard way as well. You know, I did all the classical out of bodies in the same way. You know, you have to lift up out of your body, and I've done all the healing in the same way and gone through all the same symbols. And through much experimentation, I've realized that basically all we're doing is calling up data out of the databases and influencing it with our intent. And that all the symbols and all the ritual are just tools that we require, the tools, in order to focus our intent, but they're just tools. And that we can do it with our own tools. We can use traditional tools if we like, but it's your choice. Understand that they're just tools and that you get to make those tools up. Okay, what's important Let's go to the next one. What's important is your approach. Your approach is much more important than anything else. It's your attitude. It's the way you come to it, okay? No one's going to check your answers, so nobody's going to get scored and, everybody will snicker at you if you didn't get it right. It's not going to be like that, so let all that go. This is just an experiment for your own education, to learn some things about accessing the larger reality. Okay, so it's just a learning experience. Forget all your usual techniques. Forget your lengthy preparation and relaxation. Forget formal meditation. Now, it's not that any of those things aren't helpful. They can be helpful. I just want you to know they're not necessary. Those are tools. All right. Very important. Don't try to do it. If you try to do it, you'll get in the way. Okay? That's always a problem for left-brainers. Well, how do I do it if I don't try to do it? It's like a Zen cone, isn't it? Let it happen. That's how you do it. You just let it happen. Let the information come to you. Simply execute it to the best of your ability, participate, observe what happens, open-minded, skeptical, just observe. So we'll go through these motions and you just be a scientist that's just sitting there completely unattached and observing the results. If you try to do it, if you try to force it and push on it, then you'll get in the way. You just have to be an observer. Okay, no expectations. Your expectations are beliefs. Your beliefs will limit you to what you get. You'll say, well, this can't be that way. Your operative mind, your intellect will start working, and I'm asking you to do something, and you'll try to make sense of it. Don't try to make sense of it. That's also a tough one for us left-brainers, Don't analyze it and make sense of it. Just do it and experience it. No intellectual control, no analysis, no judgments. Okay, you have to get into it 100%. I'm going to be leading you and telling you what it is I want you to do. Just do it openly, no expectations. All right? Forget about the answers being rational. Don't try to be rational. Trying to be rational will get in the way. Okay, where are we then? Just observe. The beliefs are your main limitation here. And the I can't is the worst belief, or that won't work. That'll be a belief that'll knock it right out of your ability to do it. So just be open. Needing for it to make sense is kind of the next worst limitation. I'm going to move along quickly. It didn't take you but a few seconds to switch from a bicycle to an elephant to a washing machine to a kid's birthday. I mean, it was like this, wasn't it? You could change those things like that. And I'd say, now you're on the bike, now you're off the bike, and soon, you could do that. It was easy. This isn't any harder. Okay? What makes it harder is your beliefs. Your beliefs are what gets in the way. And you're trying to make it rational, gets in the way. It isn't any harder than what you've just all done very easily. Okay, now I'm going to go quickly, so if you fall behind, don't get upset about it. Don't worry. Just drop where you're doing, catch up. That'll be fine. You have to have a very casual, relaxed attitude toward this. It's almost better if you have an I don't care, I'm just going to do it because, I'm here. I paid for this thing, so I got to sit here and listen to it and do it. So I might as well just do it and go along, This isn't going to do anything, and that's fine. That's a good attitude. That's that attitude of just being open to whatever happens. Okay, that's the attitude that you want. Get comfortable. You can shift around. You're going to be in and out of this reality. I'm going to have you come to this physical reality. You're going to write things down on that piece of paper, and you're going to go back. You come back and write things down, and so on. So when you come back to write down, and you're back in this reality, you're only going to be partly back in this reality. There'll be another part of you that's still there. And don't talk then. Don't say anything. Don't disturb other people around you. And if you hear things outside, if you hear noises, ignore them. It's not important. If somebody coughs, somebody has to get up and leave the room, don't worry about it. Just let it go. It's just unimportant background stuff that's not meaningful. If somebody had run through the hall while you were imagining yourself on a bicycle, it would have barely knocked you off the bike. You would have just kept right on going. It wouldn't have been important because you just would have heard it, but then let it go. You have to do the same here. You see, all the things that I just had you run through your exercise are actually the things that I want you to do now. But now we're really doing it as serious, right? Then it's going to get hard. Suddenly, I had a guy last time we went through this, and he said, oh, I got those gingerbread cookies. I got all that. And as soon as you said, you know, now make a humanoid image and let it be he says he couldn't get a humanoid image to save him, you know, just couldn't make one. Well, that's performance anxiety. You're afraid that you can't do it, you can't do it. So we want to let all that go. Just have fun and do it. All right. Hey, we're almost there. We're going to have 2 diagnosing and healing exercises. We're going to do this again at the end. Tomorrow, we're going to have another one of these, and it's going to be different. These are all learning. What you're going to learn in these will then be background for learning more stuff when we do it again. So this is like the start. We're going to do it at the end of tomorrow, and we'll go through we'll have a lot more additional kind of tools and skills for you to learn then, but this is going to get it started. We're going to have one remote viewing exercise, and we're going to have one in the present and one in the future, remote viewing. So we're going to go to what's going on right here, and we're going to go to what's going to happen in the future. And tomorrow we're going to go to one in the past. Okay, so take about 30 seconds and relax. Take a deep breath. Get comfortable. You know, if you have any belief trap problems or other issues, just ignore it. Follow along best you can. If you get disturbed, let it go. Resume. Be very casual. Give me, my voice, 100% of your attention. So when you hear me, I become your reality. 100% of your attention to what it is I tell you. Okay, don't intellectualize, analyze, judge, or struggle with anything. This needs to be easy. Don't struggle with it. Okay, and for those of you watching the video, you can do these same exercises, but remember that this is August the 22nd. So look at these subjects that we're going to talk about on August the 22nd, 2009. All right, so let's get ready. Close your eyes, a few deep breaths. Listen to your environment so you can kind of get used to what's out there. You hear the cars outside, you might hear people. Just get used to that. So you know it's there, accept it, then ignore it. Okay, let everything fall out of your mind except my voice. Put all of your concerns and issues aside temporarily. I want you to see or imagine a 3D humanoid outline. This is going to look like maybe a thick gingerbread cookie. Intend clearly that this humanoid outline represents the physical health energy body of Dorothy C. as it exists at this moment, and hold that intent. Intend clearly that the energy that represents health in this energy body be white, and that what represents a health problem be dark. The more serious the problem, the darker the energy looks. Hold that intent. Intend that the humanoid shape's back is facing you. Its right side is now the same as your right side. Hold that intent. Now notice where the dark areas are and which areas are most dark. With your attention on the dark spots, rotate the image of your viewing angle so you are looking at the side view. Then move on around to the front view. Look at the dark spots, see which are most dark. Then open your eyes and roughly draw what you have seen. Then immediately return to viewing the health energy body of Dorothy C. Okay, repeat the last few steps and check to see if you get the same thing. Make sure you have drawn it more or less correctly. Make corrections as needed. Okay, return to viewing the energy body. Diagnosis is complete, but continue to look at the health energy body of Dorothy C. Now use your intent to direct a beam of high-powered, intensely bright white light to each dark area. Notice how this intensely powerful light beam easily restores the dark problem areas that are black to a healthy, very bright white color. Continue until there are no dark areas left. Now use the beam to make the entire body glow with intense white light. If the white is so bright that it hurts your eyes, put on sunglasses and increase the brightness even further. Intend clearly that this energy body stay super bright, healthy white for a long, long time. Intend that the energy you have placed on this body is so great that this body will be able to absorb it for a long time. Hold that intent. You let that image go and simply float in the void for a moment. You see or imagine a 3D humanoid outline. Intend clearly that this humanoid outline represents the physical health energy body of Joseph N. at this moment in time, and then hold that intent. Intend clearly that the energy that represents health in this energy body be white, and what represents a health problem be dark. The more serious the problem, the darker the energy. Hold that intent. Intend that the humanoid shape's back is facing you. Its right side's now the same as your right side. Hold that intent. Notice where the dark areas are and which are most dark. Now switch the color scheme. Intend clearly that from this moment forward, healthy tissue will be a beautiful, shiny black, and unhealthy tissue will be a dirty white. The more serious the problem, the brighter the white energy looks. The very worst problems will glow with an intense luminosity, with beams of light protruding from the afflicted areas. Tiny afflicted areas, even single cells, will be visible in this view. Now switch your intent back to the original color scheme where white is healthy and black is unhealthy. Hold that intent. With your attention on the dark spots, rotate the image of your viewing angle so you are looking at the side view. Then move around and look at the front view. Back to the side view. Back to the back view. And then finally to the front view. Without losing your altered state, open your eyes and roughly draw what you have seen, then immediately return to viewing the health energy body of Joseph N. Okay, you are now viewing the energy body of Joseph N. Zoom in for a closer look. Get closer and closer until you can see individual cells, then the insides of individual cells. Look for the black spots. Look for the problem at the cellular level. Intend to see problems inside the cells in red. Repair and heal an individual cell. Use your white energy beam to turn that cell to a brilliant white color. Intend clearly that every afflicted cell in Joseph N. be changed the same way that you just changed that one. Watch them all instantly turn bright white as they follow your intent and take on the healthy characteristics of the one cell you just healed. Zoom back out to the original view. Again, look at the total health energy body of Joseph N. from that view. Notice the difference. Now use your intent to direct a beam of high-powered, intensely bright white light to make the entire energy body glow with intense white light. Intend that this energy body stays super bright, healthy white for a long time. Let that image go and simply float in the void for a moment. I have a picture in an envelope with a big 3 on it. Intend to have an image of this picture put on a screen or a monitor in front of you for your viewing pleasure. Remember what you see. Now put that result aside. Move your vision to the envelope with no expectations of what you might see. Look through the envelope to view the picture. Number 3. Now put that result aside. Now I have taken the picture, number 3, out of its envelope, and I am looking at it with no expectations of what you might see. Look through my eyes and see what you see. Now put that result aside. I now have put this picture on a table. Walk up to the table and with no expectation, look at it. Remember what you see. Without losing your altered state, open your eyes and write down or draw what you have seen each time. Then immediately return to the void. Okay, while floating in the void, I want you to move back to August the 5th, on Wednesday, August the 5th, 2009, between the hours of 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Keith did something. See if you can find out what it was. Clearly intend to see a movie of Keith at this particular time, doing this particular activity, or at least a series of still pictures. Remember what you saw. Next, start with Keith in the present moment and rewind backward to the time and date given, August the 5th, 4:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Rewind backward to the time given and see what Keith is doing. Okay, open your eyes and let the experience go. Float in the void. I'm going to give you a little free time here just to do as you will in the void. Okay, open your eyes and let the experiences go. Slowly and gradually re-embrace the physical world. Now, after you have fully returned, write down any notes on any of the experiences you might wish to remember, or any comments or any questions that may have come up. Take as much time as you need. Okay, let's now, hope everybody's back with me here in this reality. Let's find out about Dorothy C.
Tom, Dorothy C has a broken left thumb. Her left thumb, her hand and her wrist are in a cast. There is quite severe pain. It happened a short while ago. At this time I know of no other things that she has wrong with her.
Okay. Let's hear about Joseph N.
Tell about Joseph N.
Joseph is a 31-year-old male who is diagnosed with an illness called sarcoidosis. There are small, tiny nodules throughout both of his lungs bilaterally, and a few larger nodules in the right section of the one lung. Has a history of immune system problems, has had mono 4 times in his life. First mono case was in high school, and as a young child developed a very bad case of strep throat, which went to a kidney. And the sarcoidosis was diagnosed in 2008, and more recently, a recent CAT scan showed that the tiny nodules have spread throughout the lungs and are more prominent.
Okay. Yeah. The picture. Let's see if I can hold it so everybody can see it. You want to pass it around? It's of a bunch of men in blue lab coats holding baby panda bears. Okay, so you can. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's the picture. Okay. And finally, on Wednesday, August the 5th, Keith was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He was jet skiing on the inland waterway. A very hot day. The water was warm. Keith's son, Lewis, a young man I believe of seven years, was with him. They wrecked on the jet ski and both fell in the water. So that's what happened with Keith. Okay, so those are the kind of the truth. Now, did you notice that judging, analyzing, and the intellect, when you tried to figure things out and use your intellect, that had gotten in the way? Most of you probably noticed that. As soon as you tried to say, well, what was that, and what does this mean, and what would Keith be doing, and what did this look like, and does that make sense? As soon as you started that analytical process, you got in the way of yourself. You need to just be open and let it happen. Of course, we used a humanoid shape, and we matched that then, we added to that an intent of what that shape symbolized, and then we had an intent of what we wanted it to, what we wanted to see, the data we wanted to see in that form. So basically what we did is specified the output format. We did a query to the database, and we specified the output format. The output format was a humanoid shape with black as the diseased parts and white as the healthy parts. And we switched that around and did the opposite. And when you switch that around, did that work just as well? The white on black? Yeah, it should have worked just as well. It's just when you do that, your intent now is telling the database that you want it in a different output format. So when you query the database, you need to, 1, say specifically what you want to know, and 2, the output format you want it in. So it doesn't matter about black or white. We could have used any other colors too. It's better when you do healing to use high contrast colors. In a situation where you're looking for a large problem like a lung cancer, then it's better to use healthy white, black being the diseased tissue. It stands out real well, high contrast. If you're looking for damaged cells or small, tiny nodules or little things, like maybe a cancer cell or 2 cancer cells. Then it's much better to have black be the healthy and let the white be the diseased tissue, because then that white light just kind of shines out and gives you a pinpoint, whereas it's harder to see a tiny little black speck on a white background. You overlook it. So different images work for different things. They're just tools. You're making up the tool, you're querying the database, you can have the output any way you want. You could, if you wanted, even have the output come out as a written document, but that would probably be a lot harder for you, because then there's a lot more detail then in written words than there is in pictures. Pictures are much higher bandwidth way of transmitting data and much easier for you to assimilate than writing. So you could even, if you wanted to do writing, you could even specify the language you wanted written in. You're querying the database. The database is a very bright database. It will accommodate you. You just have to have a clear intent and not monkey with it with your own trying to add to it, trying to make it make sense, trying to make it rational, trying to force the picture. You just have to ask the question and be open to the data, collect the data, and go on. Okay, that's the approach. Now you notice we talked about left and right and zooming in and that kind of thing. The reason we did that is that you have to be careful in healing that you specify the perspective that you want the data in. If you just have that gingerbread shape and you say, I want to see the dark spots and the black spots, and you'll see them, and you'll look all the way through. So if there's something that's here on the front, you'll see it by looking at the back, and it'll be a spot right about there, but you won't have any sense of the depth of it. You just know you're looking front to back, and all the black spots are bad. Whether it's a bad spot on the chest or a bad spot in the middle of the back, you won't notice because you're only looking at it from that one dimension. Then you rotate it sideways and you can see the difference. Oh, that black spot stayed over here instead of going to this side. And then you look at it at the front, you can see it differently again. So you need to specify your output format. So if you want to look at the back of it, so right is right and left is left to you, that's fine. If you want to look face on, you have to know that what's your right is that's left. And right and left symmetry is often very difficult to manage because the database doesn't seem to really care that much. You're asking questions of health, and health really isn't right-left. It's what's wrong and what's not wrong. So if you want right and left to come out right, you have to be very careful to specify it. Otherwise, you'll see it and you'll say, oh, I had all this on the right side, and you'll find out it was all on the left side because you're not being specific enough. Because the database, in a sense, when you're asking for what's healthy and what's not, it will give you, if you don't specify orientation, you get a random draw from the possibilities. So that's the way databases work. What you don't specify comes out as a random draw. Now, notice the parallel processing. Okay, we were here writing things down, and we went back. And then we came back and wrote things down, and we went back. But while you were there, you could actually hear what was going around in a room. You could hear the kids outside. You could hear some things. And when you hear writing, you weren't entirely here. You were just kind of partly here involved in the writing, and then you went back. That's what parallel processing is like. It's kind of it can work either way. It can be a time-sharing thing where you spend a little time here, a little time there, and you kind of time slice back and forth. Or it can be where you're just doing both simultaneously. You're looking at, you're here and you're there. So you should have experienced a little of both of those kinds of parallel processing. The time switching between realities and the being aware of both realities. Notice you could come here and go and come and go, and it didn't take you long at all to get right back to where you were. And then to come here and write stuff, you go back to where you were in seconds. It didn't take a lot of process. It didn't take a lot of process to get there. If you were really involved in it, while you were looking at these images, you should have been almost unaware of your physical existence. The fact that you had a physical body sitting in a chair in this hotel, in this place, should have been very irrelevant to you. It's like it just wasn't there. You had a picture, you had the white and the dark, and you were working with it, and all the rest of the physical realities around here should have been gone. Well, when that physical reality is gone, guess what that means? It means you're out of your body. that means that you're no longer here in this reality frame. You're in some other reality frame. Your consciousness has now left this reality frame because it's not getting data here anymore. Of course, it was getting data. The ears were still picking up stuff. The brain was still getting signals. There's even a little bit of light coming in through your closed eyelids. But it doesn't even matter that you close your eyes. Some people do this just as well with their eyes open. They just shut off paying attention to that signal. Okay, so those are some things to think about. We did our diagnosis by accessing the past database. When we do this tomorrow, we're going to access future database as well and do a couple of more things, a little more complex. Our diagnosis was by intent. Our intent is what queries the database. Okay? The healing was by intent. Intent is what changes the probability of occurrence. So your intent, we use the tools of the energy bar or the energy beam. That was a tool. We just made that tool up because that helped you focus your intent on healing that dark spot and turning it white. And what better to turn something white with than a beam of bright white energy? So that was a tool that we used. Now we could have used different tools. Different tools, you know, work differently for different people because the tool has to be something that expresses your intent in a metaphor that means something to you at a deeper level. So if I'd asked you all when the good was black and the bad was white to take a black light and shine a black beam of black light on, see, that would have been hard to do because our metaphors don't deal in shining black lights. That's like, doesn't compute. So you can't do that. Now, it would have been theoretically just as effective and just as good, but we, with our experience, have problems with that because we can't visualize it. The metaphor doesn't work for us, so it's a poor metaphor. That's why I didn't ask you to use that. It's just a poor metaphor to use. So you use things that work for you. Now, you're all individuals, which means there's some of these metaphors that'll work great for you and some of them won't. And it's because you don't have the same level of significance attached to the metaphor. That just doesn't compute. If you're a science type, you may use laser beams and things like that. You know, if you're more of a romanticist, you may use fairy wands or energy bar tools or things like that. You know, it's up to you. You can use symbols, certain healing symbols if you like, and then when you have that dark spots or whatever, and you can apply the symbol to them, it's all the same difference. It's just you focusing your mind, its intent to manipulate measurements that haven't yet been made, outcomes that haven't yet been decided, and it's that wiggle room and the uncertainty is where we're doing the manipulation. Okay, so that's what's going on when you're healing. The remote viewing was also an intent, and this was a very busy picture, you know, for you to get. I don't know if you can see that in the light. That was a very busy picture for you to get. Simple pictures are a little easier, simple geometric shapes, but this also had some emotion to it. You know, a bunch of little tiny bears, right? So there was some emotional quality to that, which makes it a little easier to get. So when you get a picture like this, you don't necessarily get a photograph. If you got a background with a bunch of spots on it, well, that's kind of what this is. You know, a lot of time you'll just get shape and color. You may have gotten black and white. You know, the idea may have been like black and white spots on a blue background. You can get all sorts of things like that. You're getting the data, but you have to interpret it. So what happens if you just get this in data? How are you going to interpret it? You don't know how to interpret it. You're just getting the data. So you may interpret it, like I say, in different ways, but you have to realize that it's just your interpretation without any clues. Now, when we see it in this reality, we have all the clues. We can make the connections. But in the altered reality, you're only getting data. Now, if you get all the data, and it may look just like this picture, but if you get just part of the data, then it may just pick up elements of this picture. That's still good if you just pick up elements of the picture. Okay, and when you went in time, I ran you through a couple of different ways of looking at the pictures, through my eyes, on a table, inside, on a screen. These are all tools that you use. So when you want to see that picture, you say, I'm going to put it on a monitor in front of me, and then you look at it. Some people that works, particularly people that work a lot with computers. That's just natural for them to see pictures that way. Other people can't see it unless it comes through somebody's eyes that's looking at it, because they have a belief you can't see things with your eyes shut, but they don't mind looking at it through my eyes or somebody else's eyes. And other people have a much easier time walking up to a table and looking at it. It's just, these are all tools, all different ways of doing it. And those are just three. There's large numbers of ways you can approach it. The thing you have to learn here is that you have to experiment with your own ways of doing it. You have ways that'll work better with you. And when you try to use somebody else's rituals and somebody else's tools, it's always a bit of a misfit. It's much better to use your own rituals and your own tools to do these things. But realize they're just rituals and tools. There's nothing particular magic about what's going on here. All we're doing is using our consciousness to access and send a query to a database that is generated because of the way this virtual reality works. So it's not so much a mystical thing as it is just using the talents that you have. The hard thing is getting out of the way, not blocking it, just letting it be, not judging it, not analyzing it, just being the observer. Okay. Now, so what's real? Was this real or not? When you did the healing, was that an energy body or not? Well, if you basically followed the exercise, if when you were doing it, you weren't at the same time thinking about what you were going to do when you got home tonight, in other words, if you were focused, if you could keep your intellect under control and not judge and not try to guess and that sort of thing, and just open yourself up to it and get the data, then yes, it was probably real. Yes, you did affect the health of these individuals. You would have some effect. Now, the amount of effect you have depends on the amount of energy you can place on the problem. Okay? When you're just beginning, your energy, your focus is very unsteady. It kind of comes and goes. It flashes on and off. You get it for a few tenths of a second, and then it's gone, and then it comes back, and it's that sort of thing. It's not real strong and steady. The more you practice, the steadier it gets, the more effective you get. You have to do these things, and you have to keep track of them, and you have to get your data, your experience, your proof in this way for yourself. It's not that I tell you that these things work. You won't know that until you do it. It's not that hard to find people who have an illness. They're in your family, they're among your friends, the people you work with. It's not that hard. Find out. Better if it's somebody you don't know. If it's somebody you know and you know a little bit about it, your mind will tend to want to fill in the details. In order to keep your mind out of it, it's better if it's somebody else knows them and they just give you a name. Remote viewers have this problem. They have techniques developed so that they don't confuse themselves. They will have the target of their remote view put in an envelope by a third party. They're double blind, who then gives that envelope to somebody else not associated with them, who then just takes the envelope and says, I have a target in this envelope, go to it. That's all they get. And they go to it. Because if somebody tells them something, I want you to find somebody that was lost, in Japan, 30 years ago in the war or something, then they get confused. They start filling things in from the history they know and other things. So they make it as removed from their knowledge as possible so that they confuse themselves as little as possible. You don't need all that procedure. You can just learn to quiet your mind and focus it the way you want it and stop all that jabber. That's by practice. You will find out what works and what doesn't. You try this on 50 people and see whether they get better or not. If you try it on somebody and they get better, it could just have been circumstance. Maybe they would have gotten better anyway. But if you try it on 50 people, you'll know whether you're having an effect. If it comes out 50-50, then you're probably not having an effect. You need to change your process a little. You need to get better tools or get more focused. But that probably won't happen. My guess is that all of you, if you did this on 50 people, would find out that you are having an effect. That you really are healing. That's all it takes, is a focused intent. And if you have 10 focused intents, that's more energy put into changing the probability than if you have one focused intent. It is cumulative. So groups work well too. But if you practice this, you will eventually learn what works, what doesn't, and if what you're doing is real. So you have to go, it's an easy experiment. So go do these on your own. About Dorothy's thumb, if your intent was, intents are subtle things, but if your intent was to look at the body, look at the body in the trunk, and you didn't pay any attention to the rest of it, then you wouldn't have seen that thumb. Now, you didn't intend purposely to shut out the thumb, but you may have because you had a belief that it would be somewhere in the body. If you just kind of had that belief, because that's where most of the illnesses are. We don't get ill in the thumb a whole lot, so you just had that belief that it's probably there in the body. I'm going to look in that body, and I don't see a thing. Well, that's because you had a belief. That belief narrowed you to the body, and that's all you saw. You see? Little beliefs, stray things, little analysis that you do in your head, that gets in the way. So Dorothy's thumb was a tough one, because a lot of people won't even consider that when they do their process, when they give their intent really focuses down to something narrower because their beliefs narrow it. Their concepts of where it's likely to be start to get in the way. All right, so.